Oh, this is right. Okay. Yep. Okay. Okay, everybody. It is warm today in Northern California. It is currently about 104 degrees, which is about, I'm going to say roughly 40 degrees warmer than I ever like it to be. If it was 65 to 70 all the time and somewhat cloudy, I would be the happiest person in the world weather-wise. However, it is not anywhere near that right now. It is extraordinarily sunny and extremely hot. I'm sorry, I don't know what the Celsius conversion would be on that, but, well, the Celsius conversion is very hot. So, yeah, not fun as far as the temperature goes, at least not for me. Maybe for others. I have no doubt, and I know for a fact that there are people who enjoy the warm weather. I could never understand that mentality, but I know they exist. I know they do. I am simply not one of them. So, yeah, we're going to give this a few minutes here and, yeah, start our little stream for this week. And, see what we can do. We'll probably do some work on the hand. I'm still trying to work out how I'm going to do what's the word for it? The younger art stream for younger audiences, but I'm going to try to figure that out. I just got to work it out. But still haven't quite worked that out yet. But I just have to figure it out. So anyway, yeah, we'll do a little more of the rip disc tonight. I'm not showing it yet because I'm going to give it. I like to give about. Oh, you know what? I didn't post it to Twitter. I just realized I posted it. This is why I wait, because I am an inept poster. I don't do it properly. I did it correct to, what's the word for it? I did it correct on Discord. Although somebody pointed out in one of them, and they are absolutely right, that I have to go in and clean up my links after I post them on Discord. I've been doing a very bad job of that, which is not really fair, because on some of these Discords, it ends up just being a bunch of my links over and over and over, which is not really fair. It does start to appear like spam. So now I have to get into the habit of, once the stream is over, I'll just take down the live link. That's one thing I wish Discord, and maybe I'll shoot them an email. I don't know. I don't know whether this is something they would actually consider doing or not. It might be too hard from a technical standpoint. One of the things I don't like about, and to be fair, this isn't just Discord, it's kind of everywhere. I would like the option, because, as I'm sure many of you have noticed, when you post links sometimes, or often now, you get this big preview window, which could be like a preview image or a profile picture, or maybe the first block of an image and the website about, let's say it's a news article, and it takes up a big bunch of space, which, depending on what you're looking at, what you're viewing it in, may be a good thing, but also may not be a good thing to eat up that much real estate, and it really isn't always necessary. For example, when I put the links to this Twitch stream, I'm sorry, I'm fighting a dog hair that's clearly caught on my mouth somewhere. There we go. When I put the link to the Twitch stream, it puts the giant icon of the Twitch stream profile image, which just isn't necessary. I wish it was just the link, and then it wouldn't be as obtrusive when people looked at it. Because somebody pointed it out, and they're absolutely right. Because at one point, because I tend to stream twice a week, and then one time I think I did the 3 streams in a week, and so within a short amount of space, you just see these big images of the show thing, which is not my intent. I'm not trying to monopolize stuff that way. So, a minor feature request, I guess, if it would even qualify as that. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna have a good time tonight, because I'm gonna do something fun, and I don't usually have an idea of something to talk about during the stream, but I am going to go ahead and since Juneteenth was just 3 days ago, lost track of time, 18th, so I mean, 3 days ago, yeah, I did want to talk about some, I guess you would say, comic book characters that are people of color, because I want to encompass everything. I just want to say, because, well, actually, no, I have to think about this. Well, the ones I'm going to talk about tonight, are they all black characters? I think they are. But see, the other thing, and this really isn't, a lot of these characters get their backgrounds retconned a lot of times, so they start out as having one type of background and then they change. So I will just put this as characters that are embodied by people of color. That covers everything. I believe they are all actually, at least when I read them, they were black characters. They may have been changed or altered or updated in the years since. I don't think so, but I also don't read as many comics as I used to. So it is possible things have shifted around and changed. Because when retconning starts with a comic character, they can become virtually unrecognizable. Really, they some of the stuff they do to characters, if you were to step away from comics and come back after a while, you wouldn't really know who you were reading. You wouldn't know what the character was anymore, which is, I don't really care, but it is kind of funny how drastically some characters change. Not many, but they have done it. Anyway, it's been about 6 minutes here, so let's go ahead and roll our starting animation, such as it is. But I thought, yeah, you know what? There's some characters I like to talk about that I've talked about before, but I never tire of speaking of, so we're going to do that again. I'm going to get a drink now while this is going on, so my voice is going to go away a little bit. Oh, because it's when it's over 100 degrees, you want to stay hydrated, because, man, not fun when it's this hot. I just will never understand people who enjoy the heat. I cannot. I mean, I love the cold, and I know there's people who can't understand that. So it's that whole thing. But for me, you can bury me up to my neck in snow before you put me out in the middle of any type of heat. Anyhow, here we go. All right, so let's get back to our rip disc here. Oh, wait a minute. Bear with me a second. Oh, okay. Whatever that phone call is, it can go to the voicemail. It is not anybody important. Because I was like, well, if that's my wife, I'm going to answer it, but it is not. Therefore, I don't care. It's probably somebody who wants to do a political survey or is going to tell me that my car insurance, that my extended warranty, which I've never had in a car in my entire life, because I have people that work in the auto repair industry all over my family. Really, this thing's going to talk. Hold on a minute. Yeah, that was a survey. Who cares? Sorry. I was just muting it in case, somebody was going to scream some obscenity or whatever, because I am actually trying to keep this stream relatively tame. Not tame, but clean. And once in a while, if you actually get a live person, you don't answer your phone. I had one a couple weeks ago where this person was livid that nobody answered the phone, which you would think they might be told if you're going to be doing this type of thing, that's going to happen. But I guess this person either was having a really bad day or didn't get the memo on the fact that most people don't answer calls when it says unknown or anonymous or survey. Anyway, let's get into this. So let's see. Who do I want to start off with? Oh, tough call. Let's talk about... Yeah, you know what? Screw it. Let's start with probably one of my favorite characters, no matter what you're talking about in terms of publisher, anything, which is the... I don't know. Do they still refer... This is an interesting question. I don't know the answer to this. But I was going to say the X-Man known as, but that seems a little weird to say about Storm, who I love. Storm is simply one of the greatest comic book characters that has ever existed. And I love her, and I think she's great. And, if there's one... There's a few characters I actually do occasionally think, I should go back and read some comics. And of newer comics, meaning because I want to see where they are. But I'm always afraid that new writing is going to... And this, I know this seems like a stupid fan type of complaint, but it just... Although I should say I did read the House of 10, Powers of 10 comics. Those are sensational. But Storm is the best, man. I love Storm. Storm has been great almost the entire time I've ever read her in comics. She still has one of the most incredible visual... It's astonishing the fact that there were two hugely great redesigns of major characters, both of which I think were not all that well received at their time. One was the black suit for Spider-Man, which I think when they did that, now people like it, but I think at the time I remember. I think it was a controversial. Yes, that makes me sound very enlightened. A controversial redesign. But I mean, I'm sorry, but that. Why am I saying I'm sorry? No contest. The black suit for Spider-Man is a million times better than that red and blue thing. I know it's his classic thing. I know people grew up with it. But you know what? It's honestly not a really great costume. I know. I understand. I'm not telling you shouldn't like it. I'm just telling you it's not that great a costume. That's all. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that you shouldn't like it. I'm just saying that it's not great. Compared to the black suit, which is, number one, makes more sense for a superhero who operates, with a secret identity, number one. But also, it's just bold and cool looking. It's just so much better looking. And it goes with everything. Black and white goes with everything. Whereas red and blue, well, if you're trying to track down people during certain holidays, those colors are just going to clash. I'm sorry, they're not going to go. So black and white, always a good look. And similarly, when Storm lost her powers for a while, because I believe the look, if I recall correctly, because some of this stuff I don't always remember exactly the timelines on things, but if I recall, the redesign, when Storm was in charge of the Morlocks, when she was powerless for a while, it's showing like there's a cursor on, yeah, there we go. I don't know why we're showing a cursor there. Huh, that's interesting. Whatever. So when Storm was powerless, she lost her weather powers. Ooh, whoa, that's an eraser. For those who don't know who Storm is, I guess I should say, even though you really should know who Storm is, because Storm's amazing. I almost swore right there. It came close. You probably heard it. Storm is a member of the X-Men, and she has been there since she was there for was she part of the new X-Men team? I'm trying to remember when exactly. She wasn't part of the original team. The original team, for those who don't follow the X-Men, was Iceman, Cyclops, Beast, Angel, and Jean Grey. That was the original short, very small lineup compared to where they ended up. At one point, the X-Men in the 90s were so massive, and I mean, they really still are. Their roster expanded to such a degree that they actually split into gold and blue teams. And I don't remember what the split exactly was, but I think Cyclops led one of the teams, and I believe Storm did lead the other. Storm actually took over the team from Cyclops for a while. But anyway, when she lost her powers, because her traditional powers are command of the weather in various different ways. She can create tornadoes and storms, hence the name Storm. And she has a fascinating background. I mean, she's a great character. And I would say if you've never run anything with her and you are interested, you should go back and read some of the older Storm stories because they're really good. Now I decided I wanted to add some color in here because I just realized there wasn't any, and I think there should be, so we're going to do a little bit of, not cleanup, but correction, I guess. But anyway, at one point, Storm lost her powers, and so she was essentially an ordinary human being, because basically the X-Men are supposed to be the next stage of human evolution, so they are Homo superior, which is why Magneto is always championing them to basically take over, or at the very least to exist in an enlightened plane from normal humans, because the reason that human beings are afraid of the mutants is because they are in fact the future of humankind, and they don't like the idea of that. So anyway, that's the classic X-Men stuff. So Storm lost her powers, and so she started wearing, she's always had this long, wonderful white hair, kind of, I don't know, sort of Tina Turner style type of hair for a long time. But then when she lost her powers, she cut her hair into this awesome, I mean, pure punk rock haircut with this huge white mohawk, and she wore all leather, man. Leather jacket, leather pants, leather gloves, studs and chains, not chains, but studs and the bracelets and the spike stuff. She looked fantastic, man. She was great. And not only did she look great, sorry, if I have never mentioned this before, I'm Italian, therefore I'm gesturing with my hands as I'm talking, so I have to concentrate on not using my hands to talk and actually do the artwork in the background. Sorry. But anyway, she looked, I'm doing it again, but I'm trying to concentrate here. She looked fantastic, and even without her powers, she basically started running the Morlocks, and the Morlocks were this, or are this, I shouldn't say were, they still are as far as I know, unless again they've changed this. They were an underground group of kind of rejected mutants. usually because they were physically not as... Because a lot of the X-Men, outside of their powers, they're traditionally pretty good-looking people. So, the whole thing about their people being afraid of them, the Morlocks is the more reasonable way you would expect people to be afraid of mutants, because a lot of mutant powers are not, what's the word for it? They're not visually expressive. You don't see their mutations, except in the case of the Morlocks. Many of them do look different. They look like mutated individuals. So they are not what society would traditionally deem as normal or pretty or attractive or whatever. And so the Morlocks, I think, and I don't know what the actual genesis of those characters were, but it always felt to me like that was a way to more clearly articulate what the fear of mutants would likely be. Because again, the X-Men, if you put them all in nice clothing and have them stand on a red carpet, they're beautiful people. Even Wolverine, to the right person, Wolverine is a little stocky guy, but he's certainly not, he's not a bad-looking guy. He's just very short and hairy. But you know what? There's a segment of the audience that I'm sure enjoys that. So most of the... And Storm is one of the best examples of it, because Storm is... Essentially, to me, Storm was always Angela Bassett. That was always the person in my mind for who Storm was. And, I mean, Angela Bassett, who is beautiful and ripped. I mean, Angela Bassett could throw me through a wall, I'm pretty sure, fairly easily, and I would guess I outweigh her by, I'm going to say, 100-plus pounds. And so I was always like, Storm is Angela Bassett. So imagine Angela Bassett with a boss white mohawk and all leather, right? And you're starting to understand why this character appealed to me. I mean, I am about 4 feet away from an original wonderful image of Storm from this period that was done by an artist who, if you look for her on Twitter or on her Etsy shop, it's Subversive Girl. She's a really, really wonderful artist who does these amazing portraiture type of things. And some of her images, she uses a lot of swirls and circles to kind of build the image. Really wonderful. And as soon as there's certain images that as soon as I see them, I know I need to have the originals. That was one of them. So I have that very, very prominently placed right above my computer screen. So I can always look up and there's Storm looking just magnificent. So yeah, Storm in that era was just awesome. I mean, I love Storm. Has always been one of those characters that I think is done so well, because they really managed to make her, when she was written well, and all comic characters have this problem, is you get the wrong writer involved and any character becomes buffoonery. But Storm has always, not always, but at least in a lot of the comics I read her in, and I don't know whether this was just an inherent thing where people, the creators were aware of the power of this character, but there has always been something about Storm that has stood above many other ones, where there is a respect for the power of this character, not only because of the history of the character, but just almost like the character's presence itself commands it. I think at one point, I'm pretty sure in the comics, she actually was Queen of Wakanda. I believe she was Black Panther. She may still be Black Panther's bride. See, I haven't read comics. I just happened to see a couple things about that. But, the last time I was reading Storm, she was still trying to make it work with Forge. So, that's years and years ago. And I don't know what they ever did with that relationship. I'm sure they've both died and been reborn at least 80 times at this point. So, maybe on one of their regenerations, they decided to just be friends or something. With comics, it's the problem with the longevity of comic book characters is you have to really start inventing some stupid ways to have things make sense. So I don't really know what Storm's current status is, but honestly, I don't care. Because no matter what they would ever do with her in a modern comic, if they even manage to screw her up somehow, she's always going to be one of my favorite characters and one of just the best specific looks, especially in comics, because so often characters don't change. Even when they change their costumes, they usually don't change them in a significant way. Or when they do, it's gimmicky, like when they made Daredevil into that armored ninja crap, which just seemed so stupid. Talk about making a design that feels like it's only going to last 5 minutes of pop culture value. That's one of the best examples of it. To take that character and make him into a character who is at least partially defined, by the way, in his acrobatic and ability to move, his agility, and you put him into this complicated, weird, heavy-looking, awkward armor thing, that's a good idea? No, it's not. So, they've been pretty good with Storm as far as, I mean, some of the redesigns for her are not, they don't look good when you consider how over-sexualized they are. That's the only, I've seen that. And honestly, every female comic character, unfortunately, goes through that at some point. It's less common now than it used to be, but it used to be pretty bad. And again, almost every female comic character went through it, where you would just see these ridiculous outfits. Like Power Girl. I love Power Girl, but I've always hated that her traditional costume with that circle right over her cleavage. It's just so ridiculous. There's so much better ways that you could do a costume on a character that, yes, is supposed to have a large bust. Like, I know they're not going to change that. So I get it. That's not going away. But even at the time, that had to be the most juvenile approach for that character. Especially when you're talking about making a character that's supposed to be an analog for Superman. And that's the route you go? Okay, I guess. But like I said, Storm has had those designs over the years, as every female character generally has, except probably newer ones where there's more of an awareness that, hey, you know what? Maybe we're being kind of stupid about this. But I've also seen some really good alternate character designs from her classic costume. And when I say classic costume, I'm talking about the old 70s one, which was, like this big black cape, and I guess it was kind of a black bikini, leather bikini type of thing. I don't really know how else you would describe it. But they've, the X-Men have gotten some of the better redesigns in comics in general, to be honest, over the years, as far as alterations and updates to the costumes. But there are certain looks which I just wish they would just stick with. The black suit Spider-Man is one of them. I don't necessarily mind that the Storm outfit didn't stay as the black leather outfit because, yeah, that's a very civilian outfit. So I get that, once she had her powers back, they were going to put her back into a more, again, sort of a regal look, which is fine. I don't mind that. I don't have a problem with that necessarily. But there are times where they redesign characters, and I wish they would just stick with the redesign. Or have a couple and cycle through. It is sort of weird that comic characters have outfits that are uniforms, military-type uniforms, because that's really what it's evoking, is when you wear the same costume all the time, it starts to feel like you're part of a military unit or, some kind of team where you have to be identified by your actual clothing, which is generally a military or, something in terms of like a royal procession type of thing. Plus a lot of those... Oh, I saw it this time. Hold on, let me regain it here. That's the nice part about having it cast up to the monitor. Give me a second. This won't take long. I don't know why it keeps happening. That's strange. No, it doesn't matter. Let me get it back. And as soon as I see it, I'll come back here. But yeah, Storm in the leather Morlocks outfit. Yep, I can stick with that all the time because that's a hell of a good look. Like I said, really, I put that right up there with the black suit Spider-Man. And not the movie version. I'm talking about the good version. That movie thing with that raised webbing. I never was a fan of that, kind of 3D web or whatever they called it, where it's raised off the costume. I never liked that. As much as I liked the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, the Spider-Man movies, I should say, never did like that design. I always thought that was kind of a weird, and then of course when they decide to bring in the black and white costume, they do not only a terrible version of the costume, but probably one of the worst Spider-Man movies that's ever been made. So they really kind of double screwed that up for me because, all right, you take the costume that I think is superior. Sort of the same thing they did with the Venom movie. Even though I liked the Venom movie, they distorted that costume too. I mean, I know it's not Venom the same way because there is no Spider-Man, or there sort of is now, but not really. And that was kind of, that is one of the things that you do wonder how they, I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it's so weird to have Venom and not have Spider-Man involved because, honestly, he's such a crucial part of Venom's whole thing, although they've changed Venom a number of times over the years too. He's a completely different character now than he used to be too. So I guess it really doesn't matter. You don't really need Spider-Man anymore because Venom is not Venom the way he used to be Venom. Instead of his whole thing being vengeance on Spider-Man, he's now doing all kinds of other stuff, which I don't necessarily think is bad the way some people do. But yeah, it does. I guess it does jettison the real need to have Spider-Man around. So I guess I understand it. I guess I'll just talk myself into being accepting of the fact that there is no Spider-Man in the Venom movies. Even though I still find it kind of strange because the Venom character is such a wonderful one when he is contrasted with Spider-Man. To lose that to some degree does suck a little bit of the soul out of the character. But, you know, again, minor thing. Anyway, don't want to go on about Venom forever. You can read plenty of stuff about Venom in other places. So, yeah, Storm. I love Storm in the... Oh, where did I put those lines? Oh, that's not bad. That's fine. Oh, no, that's in the wrong spot. That's the detail lines for the little lines, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. These are all going to get combined anyway. Yeah, Storm in the leather outfit. I do love Morlock era Storm. That's good stuff. Speaking of X-Men, let's come back. Let's do a different character. Another great character, which is, and honestly, this is, you know what? Now that I think about it, in terms of live action, Storm has not always been very well served either, if you look at the X-Men movies. Depends on the movie, but she's not been done as well as I think she could be either. But it used to be very easy for me to get into a rant mode over the fact that they railroaded the Hal Jordan Green Lantern character when they did the Parallax storyline. But the thing that I actually have discovered I really like, because I used to love Hal Jordan, I used to think he was the best Green Lantern, and in some ways he still is. In some ways I think of the kind of mainline Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan's, I mean, his whole thing about willpower and it's still really good. But honestly, the Green Lantern who I now really love is John Stewart. The Green Lantern who I would really like to see him get a live action movie. Honestly, I would not go with Hal Jordan again. I will never let go of my hatred towards Kyle Rayner. It's just going to be something I'll be bitter about forever because I still think that character, no matter how good they've made him now, was really stupid when they started out with him, and I'm not going to let that one go. But John Stewart is the next Green Lantern I'd like to see. That's the character I think they really should put on the screen because John Stewart's great. And for those who may not know, if you don't follow Green Lantern or you only know of Hal Jordan because he's the one that gets all the attention generally, John Stewart was for a long time, was the other Green Lantern of Earth. And his background is that he's ex-military. And so so is Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is also, although John Stewart, if I remember correctly, was ex-Marine, Hal Jordan was in the Air Force, I believe. I forget. I don't know that they've changed it. I think it was, so basically Hal Jordan was a test pilot and John Stewart was a Marine. I don't think they've changed that. Again, I have to preface all this by saying this is when I last read them, so I don't know what stuff they've changed. I mean, they've changed a bunch of things with characters to the point where, you know, I assume John Stewart is still a Marine, but I don't know. I assume Hal Jordan is still Air Force, but I don't know. But in any event, the nice part about John Stewart in comparison to Hal Jordan is sort of the classic, you know, Tom Cruise maverick archetype, you know, where he breaks the rules and, you know, but everybody respects him because he breaks the rules for a good reason. And John Stewart always came off as, frankly, the more mature of the two of them. It took a while for John Stewart to really grow on me. I liked him right away because I put those lines on there, didn't I? I already know what I did. Yep, I did. I put them on the wrong level. Did I do all those too? I gotta look. Hold on. It's because I was talking. I wasn't paying attention. Let me look. Okay, I think I only did those lines there, so I might be okay. Oh, no, those lines too. All right, no problem. These are not hard lines to replicate. I just wasn't paying attention because I was talking. But I'll fix it. Actually, before I fix it, I'll do this because I just realized I hadn't filled this in. So anyway, you know, I liked John Stewart right away initially because a lot of times in comics when they bring in a second team member or whatever, especially something like with the Green Lanterns, they often just try to copy the other one, so it becomes a very performative difference or a very empty one where there's really no distinction between them. But Jon Stewart, right from the get-go, felt different. He felt like a independent character who was every bit as worthy of being a Green Lantern as Hal Jordan was, but in a very different way. So instead of just being, I did it again. Good thing I checked this time, because I just kind of realized, I just started talking and I didn't switch layers. So instead of just essentially copying and slightly changing Hal Jordan into another character so that you could, because this is what they usually do, is it's a lot of times an excuse to throw that main character into deep space or to kill them off for a while. It's kind of what they did with the reign of the Superman, when Superman died for a couple weeks. And then suddenly there were 4 other Supermen running around that people thought might be him. So there was Cyborg Superman, there was the Eradicator, there was Steel, who I like a lot now too. Steel started off as a very bad character, I feel like. Very shallowly written. Again, kind of Steel is actually the example of what they normally tend to do, which is they took a character, Superman, and they essentially created you couldn't call anything but a black copy of him. And for a while, he felt like he was just trying to imitate Superman without much of a personality. And then they really built that character up. Really built him up. Where Steel now is great. And they've made him very independent. And they've made Superman, instead of a source of... I just noticed my screen went away again. Hold on, I'll fix it. Instead of just being a source or an imitation, they made Superman a inspiration point. I'm going to shift to my seat really quick. There we go. And that's a lot better. That functions much better for the Henry Irons character, because then it makes Superman the starting point, not the end goal. And I think that's a far better idea. So yeah, I like Steel a lot better now than I did in the initial days when Steel was around. Yeah, that character did not come off well. In terms of the character, just felt like it was a copy. Didn't feel like the character had anything interesting to say. Now it's a much different thing. Jon Stewart was different. Jon Stewart felt different right from the beginning. I mean, yes, he was wearing a similar outfit and he was occupying a similar mission space, but he didn't come off as, Hal Jordan, but let's do him, just different enough that we can give him a different name. It felt like the character actually existed independently and had a different methodology to things. And at times would cause tension with Hal Jordan, which I think is great. I like the fact that they didn't try to make them just be the same type of character who would naturally get along, but instead made it something where the respect was more earned. And I just like Jon Stewart in general, his kind of approach to things, because the Hal Jordan thing can get a little, okay, now you're getting a little bit almost into parody with his, devil may care attitude. And they've played around with varying that, at least at the times that I read the comics, but they never got too far from it. He always was still quintessentially the Ryan Reynolds Hal Jordan. I mean, that was such an obvious pick to play that character. Even more obvious than Deadpool, as incredible as that'll sound. I think Ryan Reynolds was almost like a born to play Hal Jordan. It's just a shame they put him in such a bad movie. But yeah, Jon Stewart, over the years, the more I've read, because I've read little stuff of Green Lantern here and there, little snippets and some of the independent stories and some of the one-off stuff with Jon Stewart. And I really like that character a lot better. And I always did like him, but he's evolved to be, honestly, probably better than Hal Jordan for me at this point, which is saying something, because for a long time, Hal Jordan was kind of, Green Lantern has always been one of my favorite comic book characters. I've always really liked the idea of a character who is not simply, because the thing with Superman is, and I love Superman, don't get me wrong, I do love Superman, but Superman's a lot of his, what makes him Superman, outside of the inherent dignity and optimism the character embodies, but his powers are largely just his. He just has them because he's in a sun that gives him powers. So his invulnerability is not a manifestation of his goodness, if that makes sense. He's not he's not creating his invulnerability and his heat vision and his flight. Those are powers that are genetically bestowed to him because of the environment he's in. Whereas Green Lantern is the outside of, and I don't know if they still have this. For a while, Green Lantern had a thing where the character had a force field that would stop them from being killed, which is sort of a weird thing to give a character because it's a level of invulnerability that you really wouldn't expect. But outside of that was the only thing that a Green Lantern was really given. The rest of it had to come from willpower, and they started to work in imagination and creativity later, because initially, if you looked at old Green Lantern comics, the classic joke is it's basically a guy going around shooting people with a giant green boxing glove. And it was that simple. They really didn't put much thought into the fact that the power ring is one of the, if not the most powerful weapon in the DC universe, because you can make it do anything. It's pretty crazy that its only limitation is the will and the creativity of the user. It is a massively powerful device, a super weapon if there's ever been one. So yeah, that is the only thing I think they actually did right with Kyle Rayner in the initial days. Is they made him, he was a freelance, I think it was supposed to be a graphic designer or an illustrator, I don't remember, which even more irritated me that they created a character that, in a sense, should have been one I could have felt like represented me in some way, not physically, I'm never going to look like Kyle Rayner, but in terms of, oh, okay, look, it's an artist, it's an arty-farty type, that's great. And then they just made him the junkiest character, so it flushed any of that goodwill straight down the toilet, which is just kind of like, oh, really? It's, yeah, not great. But in any event, the one thing they did get right about that character, the one thing I actually did appreciate, was the fact that he then started to use his creative mind and his imagination to make really wacky weapons, giant weird-looking guns and space lasers and spaceships and stuff, because he had an imaginative mind. That's the one thing that had really been missing. And now they've moved it on to everybody, so all the Green Lanterns do it. John Stewart tends to operate in ways that relate to his life experience. So a lot of times what he'll do is, he was a sniper, at least he was a sniper. Again, at the time I was reading him, he was a Marine sniper. And so he would manifest sniper rifles a lot in his stuff. So he would be firing from, long range, this green glowing cosmic sniper rifle, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe not cosmic as, oh no, you would call it cosmic. It's cosmic power. But a lot of his stuff would reflect his military background. And that's a really neat idea. That's again, the versatility of the power ring is one of the things I really love about it, is that it can be so, and they have opened that character set up to so many different types of people, which is fantastic, because it is so malleable to whoever is wielding it. You can really, there is no story that you can't tell using the Green Lantern setup, because there is no inherent type of person that would get a power ring outside of them being worthy of wielding it. And that worth can even vary depending on, what you want the story to be. Guy Gardner was famously a scumbag and basically a villain. He started off using Sinestro's power ring, which was the bad power ring, the yellow power ring, which for a while was one of Green Lantern's weaknesses. A pretty ridiculous one when you actually think about it for more than 5 seconds. Why? Then they made it into, it's the color of fear. That was Parallax, was a green dragon monster. That's so stupid. I mean, one of the prime examples of how stupid comics can be. They can simultaneously tell some of the best, most imaginative and deep and engaging stories you're ever going to read, and then they turn around and they do stupid stuff like Parallax, which the concept of Parallax as a way to humanize the Green Lantern characters, at least the human ones, it makes sense. You get it. Because the idea is that fear inspires doubt, which then means that your willpower fails. And if your ring runs on willpower, and there is a monster that can make you terrified, then it can corrupt you or weaken you and all that. That's all neat stuff. but the way that it was handled was so bad. I mean, it was not good. Not good. I haven't read it in a long time, so I don't know if they've... As far as I know, Parallax is still around as a glowing green worm dragon monster or whatever. But initially, when they did that whole Hal Jordan thing, and I'm gonna try to limit how much I go into this because it's so stupid. But the way that thing started, where they took the Hal Jordan character and just... I'm not even going to get into it because I'll just talk about it for 45 minutes, and that was not something I wanted to do. But in any event, Jon Stewart, great character. Really good character. One that I liked right from the beginning. Kind of like Storm. I always liked Storm. Even before her redesign, even the classic stories, Storm always had this different thing about her where she felt like a more well-crafted character. Because, you go through comics... And there are web pages and web pages and web pages and articles all over the place that are devoted to some of the stupid characters or characters that had lots of potential and they didn't know what to do with them. They're all over the place. What you find is much rarer is a character like Storm or Jon Stewart that is well formed, or at least on the road to being a very good character from the actual creation of it. From the initial gestation of the character idea, there is something that is special about the character. Storm and Jon Stewart are two good examples of that, where those two characters feel like they are well formed in the beginning to be characters that are going to be special and have been. And that's great. So yeah, I like the two of them. Shame that they don't do more crossovers, because those two characters together would be interesting, I think. And, that's, by the way, the kind of in the opposite of what I said about Storm, with such a magnificent redesign. I always like the fact that Jon Stewart, at least for a while, I'm sure he doesn't now, I'm sure he's personalized his outfit now, because pretty much that's the Green Lantern thing, is now they all have to have individual outfits. But I also like the fact that he wore the same outfit as Hal Jordan. Because, again, it established him as an equal, which I like. And I know people will make the argument, yeah, but that's just that's conforming. That's not expressing his individuality through the costume. And I don't disagree. I don't mind that the costumes changed. But at the beginning, I think the fact that he was positioned as an equal as opposed to somehow different in some way, I always kind of thought that was a good idea too. Like I said, I don't mind that now I'm sure his costume looks different. And I think that's one of those things that echoes in some ways real life, where, your initial idea is you imitate others because you're trying to figure out who you are, and then once you figure that out, that's when you break off and do something individual. But I think in particular for that character, because Hal Jordan at the point where Jon Stewart first came in was such an overwhelming presence, to put him in an equal light at a time when characters that were people of color were not always put into equal light. They just weren't. I mean, you do not have to look far to find really terrible examples of how characters were, if not outrightly racist in their portrayals, were certainly not very enlightened. So I always like the fact that don't get me wrong, again, the biggest problem with any comic book character is that so much goodwill and good faith and good establishment of a character and the character's motivations and personality can be destroyed by bad writing. I mean, you could have a comic that runs for 50-something issues of stellar writing and magnificent production, and then the next 25 can erase it in 2 seconds. Famously, if you look at the fridging the girlfriend thing, to speak of Kyle Rayner and how much I despise that character. But, that became a meme based on just one storyline element that they did with Kyle Rayner, which was where he found his girlfriend stuffed dead into a fridge. So that's what I mean. Now, don't get me wrong, that's maybe a bad example of what I'm talking about, because I don't think Kyle Rayner has been... Well, recently they did better with him in a couple things like the Omega Men and that type of thing, but even then I don't know that he as a character is all that strong as a concept. So, maybe I'm reverse proving my point by saying, yeah, bad characters sometimes can't escape being bad characters. I'm looking at you, Kyle Rayner. So maybe not, but anyway, yeah, I'm not. Again, I could go on about Kyle Rayner forever. Well, you know what? Let's see. I think what I'll do is, I can do one more. Let's do one more here. Because unfortunately, I haven't gotten my new desk chair yet. I have a new desk chair coming, but it's going to take a while, I think. Because the chair that I'm in now has no breathability to it. The back is solid, which, we have central air. We're very lucky. So I don't want to complain too much. There are people who do not have air conditioning, and I don't want to sound like a whiny, entitled idiot. But even with central air, with no airflow for the back of the chair, it does get a little warm after a while. So my back is quite warm because unfortunately I have the blinds closed, but still the heat is coming from behind me because the sun is behind me now. So I am getting a good amount of that heat coming in, which is, after a while is not the most pleasant thing in the world, but I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to complain too much. I know there are people who, I don't know how people exist without air conditioning. I guess you just have to like the heat. Well, I shouldn't say that. You adapt to the conditions you're in. It's unfortunate that people would have to do that. That we live in a world where people would have to try to survive being in the heat, because I've already seen a bunch of news articles about, be careful with people who are, have not mental problems, health problems, or elderly because, of the heat. And it's tremendously sad. I don't want to end on a sad note, but that is a sad thing to have to contemplate. But that's, so I don't want to complain too much, but my back is a bit warm, I will admit, from sitting with my back in a chair that does not have a mesh on it. My new chair will have breathability, so that will be better. Not to mention, I should have gotten a new chair a long time ago. This chair has never been all that good ergonomically, but, it's one of those things where when you're taller, it's tough to find good chairs, too. Not a lot of office chairs are made for taller people. Even the one I'm in now is not really made for my height, but it's what I've just had, and especially because a lot of stuff I do, I'm at a standing desk, so it really doesn't matter. But trying to draw like this while I'm standing would to have audio and everything would require a setup that would, you're talking about, I would have to reconfigure the whole room, and that's just not something I'm in but a willingness to do at the moment. So this is making do. But yeah, the new chair will be, I think, more generally conducive to me being comfortable for longer amounts of time. Because that's the other thing, is not only the heat of my back, but this chair just has no lumbar support, no really anything. It's when I got this chair, this was part of a very basic desk and chair set. So again, at the time, it was fine, and it made do. It actually survived a lot longer than I would think a chair that was as cheap as this one would survive. But still, its time has come and gone, and so it's going to be put out to pasture in the next few weeks. So I have a new chair coming from a company called Branch, because I didn't want to spend $1,500 on an office chair, because I don't sit that much I'm not sitting for 8 hours a day. So I really didn't feel like spending that much on it, but I wanted to have it be better than this. So I got a chair from Branch when they did one of their sales, and I felt, okay, this is sort of a middle ground where you don't want to be spending $50 on a chair because there's a good possibility it's going to fall apart under you. But at the same time, I didn't want to spend what, a cheap beater car would go for in some places. Not in this market, obviously. In this market, I'm guessing that a pair of roller skates with a motor could get you $5 or $6 grand, but you know what I mean. I didn't want to go with too cheap a chair, but I also didn't want to have to risk missing a mortgage payment for one either. Even though I know those chairs are good. I'm not saying if you are somebody who spends all your day in a chair, it's a much different calculation than me. But for my particular use case, a chair, a slightly lower end chair, not lower end, but cheaper chair than an Aeron or a Herman Miller Aeron was fine. All right. Well, we ended up getting all the accent lines on the colors done. So that's where we are. I don't think I missed any spots. So on the next stream, I think we're going to be doing small detail lines like we did in the bones here. We may add some more shading in. We may add a couple more rips and tears and some gorier elements to it. But essentially, we're pretty close here to entering what I would call the final stretch, which is a little detail work. And a couple other things. I'm going to add a couple things, but they're minor. But essentially, we're in good shape here. So Yeah, we're coming up to, oh, you know what? Oh, no, I was going to leave those. That the finger one up there I was going to do, although you know what? I can't leave it like that because it doesn't look right. It seems unfinished. Even though my intent was to show ripples of skin, it's not coming off like that. It's coming off like I didn't finish doing it. So you know what? We're just going to go ahead and fill this in. Sometimes that's what happens. You know, I was talking about when you take a break from looking at something, you realize you got to fix it. So I'm just going to go, I don't think it's not like this doesn't still look like rippled skin, but I think it looks more unfinished than it does intentional. So we're just going to go ahead and give this thing the same shading hatch marks, cross hatching, or whatever you want to call them. I've heard them referred to in many different ways. I always just call them accent lines. But I know some people would say, no, those aren't accent lines. They're not really accent lines. They're detail. Well, that's why I call them detail lines, too. Let's see, is that? Yeah, there it is. Fill that. Okay. Let's finish this out. And this will be the end of our stream for today. Okay, we'll go in here. And we'll finish this. And I just saw another spot I missed. Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Sorry I have to keep jumping back and forth, but I see these things because they're zoomed in, which I didn't see when I did the initial painting. This is normally how it goes, by the way. This is not unusual. This is extraordinarily typical. Okay, so there we go. All right, we are finished for this particular stream. So there we are. There's where we are. We will pick this up again probably in a couple days. Go ahead and switch to here. And I don't have much. Oh, stop mirroring. I don't think I have anything else to say. So I hope you're staying cooler, no matter what the temperature is wherever you are. But I hope it's cooler for you than it is for me right now, because, yeah, not exactly the most fun thing to be in unless you really, really enjoy the heat, which I do not. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and say have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday or whatever day it is where you are. And we'll be back in a couple days to continue our stream. All right. Have a good one, everybody.